Whew. All right. Oh man, is it good to be back in front of the camera? It's a little weird to be back in front of the camera, but oh man, it feels good to sit down and record another video. YouTube, how I have missed you. What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. It has been so long since I've sat down and recorded a video. It feels so good to sit down and record again, and I've had a lot to think about since I uploaded my video 20 plus days ago. I think it's been about 3 weeks to the date since I uploaded my last video. So I want to thank you guys so much for sticking around. I kept up with channel analytics and everything just to see, people were still watching with news going on. And of course, while views and watch time went down, I still had a gain in subscribers. We're now, last time I checked, at 40 subscribers, which is crazy. I think when I went on my break, I was around on 34, 35. So I want to thank you guys so much. Really does mean a lot to see. Even when I don't upload, you guys are still watching, still subscribing, still finding joy in my content. It means an absolute ton to me. But today, I'm going to be sitting down and giving you guys my thoughts on what other leagues around the United States are doing to combat this pandemic, give you my thoughts on what they're doing good, what they're doing bad, what other leagues should watch out for before they start play. And there's been a lot of big news recently that has dropped in college football, but I'm going to focus on two main topics today and ultimately give you what that means for the grand scheme of college football, ultimately give you my thoughts on what I think college football is going towards, what I think college football should do, and then I'm going to ask you guys a very, very important question towards the end of the video. You guys are not going to want to miss it. But before we jump into that, if that like button is not blue, then you have not clicked it. So please leave a big fat thumbs up on this video. And if that subscribe button is still red, then you haven't clicked it. Make sure you click that subscribe button and leave a comment down below. I'll ask you to leave a comment later in this video on the question I am going to ask you towards the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of my thoughts on what the sports world is doing right and wrong right now. All right, so as I said in the little intro, I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts, comments, concerns on what the sports world is doing right and what the sports world is doing wrong amid the pandemic that we are all facing. So I'm going to go ahead and get into how other major sports are dealing with the pandemic, and more specifically, how other professional sports are dealing with this pandemic. So the MLS and the NBA have moved teams into a quote-unquote bubble in Orlando, Florida, at the Walt Disney World's Wide World of Sports complex. So the MLS was the first kind of major sport to kick back off. They had a World Cup style tournament that is in the knockout stage right now. I believe they are in the round of 8. So they're in the quarterfinals. My team, the Columbus Crew, just got knocked out by Minnesota in penalties. But I've been watching a lot of the MLS's back tournament, as it was the only sport on for quite a bit. And they have done a really good job. And even though some teams have had to drop out because of just too many cases, if a case does pop up in the MLS, they handled it very, very, very well. And the MLS deserves a lot of credit for doing what they've done in Orlando. And they hope to continue to have a normal regular season after this tournament. Now, the NBA is kicking off the seeding games tonight, 22 teams in the bubble in Orlando, Florida for the NBA. Seeding games kick off tonight. So the NBA is back, and I expect much of the same. Not a lot of cases been reported in the NBA, and there's been a lot of scrimmages and stuff like that before the seeding games just to kind of, get back in the basketball form. And nothing has really been canceled or postponed there, so I feel good about the NBA. And then the NHL has moved 24 teams into 2 separate bubbles, 12 teams per bubble, separated by conference in Toronto and Edmonton. And they will have a 24-team Stanley Cup playoff to decide the champion there. And before the NHL even was moving teams into the bubble, teams were moving into the bubble just recently, there were 0 positive cases among all of the players, all of the staff that had been tested moving into the NHL bubble. So I'm not worried about the NHL at all. I think the NHL is going to perform very, very well up there in Toronto and Edmonton, and I expect them to be able to crown a Stanley Cup champion in 2020. So now let's move on to baseball, where baseball had a little bit of a different approach. They said quits to the bubble, and they were going to do what the KBO was doing. And if you didn't know, that is the Korean Baseball League, where they're just going to play in the home stadiums, but without fans. And it got off to a pretty good start. 3 or 4 games have been played. Then when all of a sudden the MLB brought out a statement saying that the Miami Marlins had double-digit number of players, coaches, staff test positive for this disease that is going around, and the team that was playing them, Philadelphia Phillies. Both of these teams have suspended play per Major League Baseball. They have suspended their play until further notice. Miami Marlins, I think, is suspended play until Sunday, and then the Phillies are suspended play until further notice, which I don't know how the MLB didn't see this coming. To be honest with you, and the way the scheduling works is it's a 60-game season. You're only playing teams in your division and in your division, but in the other conference. So like if you're in the AL East, you would only play teams in the AL East and the NL East. So I don't know why they didn't just do 3 10-team bubbles. I guess it is hard to find sites with a lot of baseball fields that are major league standard, but I don't know how the MLB didn't see this coming. They have since adapted their standards and what they look for this virus watch protection, whatever you want to call it. But I was skeptical about the MLB, even with the expanded playoffs. I think they're going to be okay now with these affected standards, but I'm still really worried for the Major League Baseball. I don't think they handled this situation well. I definitely think they should have done 3 10-team bubbles, but we'll see how the MLB season finishes out. And now let's move on to football. The NFL was pitched the idea of a bubble, but they have refused the offer, and they plan to continue the season with home teams playing home games in home stadiums with limited or 0 fans. And my thoughts on this, I'm going to be flat out honest with you guys. I do not think sports can work without a bubble. MLB maybe can't, as it is arguably the least contact sport in just sports generally. But for a game like football that is contact everywhere on the field, you need some sort of a bubble. You can't have teams traveling everywhere and with risk of catching one. Lots of players have already opted out of this NFL season. I expect quite a fair few more to drop out of the season if something does not get done. I think the NFL is being ridiculous here, and while I get the move, it's a little too early. We're about a month away from football. Things can change then. This virus has been really unpredictable. I still think the NFL should have jumped on this opportunity while they had the chance and find a site that is going to be able to let them have a bubble and continue the season as they wish, just in a controlled environment. I think the NFL is really missing out here. So now let's move on to college football news, and lots of big college football news has dropped recently. Of course, that is what this channel is mainly about. So this is what you all have come to see. But a couple big things have dropped the past couple of days in college football. Besides these 2 things, they have updated virus testing protocols across the league. But some of the biggest news in college football is that the NCAA has given the green light for the college football season to start on August 29th. That is the earliest it's allowed to start. So technically, we are less than a month away from football, but other conferences have come out and said that we're only going to do conference games. Of course, the Big Ten already came out and said, the Pac-12 came out and said it. That was what my last video was about. And since then, the ACC has come out and said that they are going to hope to move to an 11-game season with 1 non-conference opponent, and that would include Notre Dame for the 2020 season per multiple sources. There's going to be no divisions in the ACC, and I believe play is going to start the weekend of September 12th. Of course, they plan to play in home stadiums, but now Notre Dame is viable for an ACC title, and they're basically going to be playing in the ACC conference. The one contingency with this one non-conference opponent is it would have to be in your own state. So Florida State could go play Florida. Georgia could go play, or excuse me, Georgia Tech could go play Georgia. Stuff like that. I don't think this is going to happen, though. I think they're eventually going to move down to a 10-game season. But the big thing here is that Notre Dame is viable for an ACC title. And what does this mean for playoff if we still end up having a playoff, which is what the playoff committee still hopes to do? It means that the road for Clemson just got a lot harder, and the road for Notre Dame just got a lot easier. Notre Dame now has that ability to win a conference championship and solidify their spot in the playoff. And Clemson, well, they're probably more than likely have to face Notre Dame as they were already on their schedule. I know the ACC has already let out a schedule of which teams are going to be playing. And while I do not have it here, I have looked at it, and Clemson and Notre Dame is still on and still going to happen. But again, made the road for Notre Dame a lot easier, road for Clemson a lot harder. But what makes this not work, this 11-game season with one non-conference opponent, is that the SEC today just announced that they are going to be moving to a 10-game conference-only schedule for 2020. And I do believe that is going to start on the weekend of September 26th. I do not think schedules have been released for that quite yet, although it did just get released as of recording this right now. But reports came out a couple of days ago saying that the SEC was going to move to 10-game conference-only schedules. That's where they were moving to, but as of today, it has been officially released that they are moving to a 10-game conference-only schedule. So now what makes that ACC thing not really work out is a lot of FCS conferences are postponing their football season. So now Georgia Tech can no longer go play Georgia. Florida State can no longer go play Florida because the SEC is going to move to conference-only scheduling. So now the Big 12 is the only conference left. And, well, the Big 12 has really wanted to the Big 12 has wanted to maintain a 12-game schedule for a long time. And now I think they have no choice but to move to a conference-only schedule. I do believe that the ACC is going to move down to a 10-game schedule and get rid of that non-conference opponent. And then the Big 12 has no other choice left. I think the Big 12 has to go down to a 10-game conference-only schedule for the 2020 season. So now where do I think college football is heading? Well, I just told you, I think college football is heading towards each conference is going to have a 10-game season where you just play teams within your conference. Now the Big 12 is a little tricky because, of course, they only have 10 teams and you can't play yourself. So maybe they'll play a team twice or they will only play 9 games. But this is why the Big 12 has wanted to keep this 12-game schedule, because they say, hey, we only have 10 teams, and if everyone else is going to play a 10-game schedule, we kind of have to have a 10th game on there somewhere. So we don't want to go only conference, but it's looking like the Big 12 is going to end up having no choice. So I'll get to the second question in a little bit. What do I think college football should do to have a season? But ultimately, and not where I'm not very happy, but I had to put this slide on here. But we could very well see college football played in the spring or just flat out not played at all. But the conference is moving down to this 10-game only conference stretch is really, really good. And it gives a lot of hope for college football, because what it does is it limits traveling and all of that good stuff. But very well, if things just get way too out of control, they could push it back to the spring, or they could just absolutely not play it at all. But I do think that pushing it back to the spring is an absolute last resort for college football. They do not want to do that, which is why they're just trying to cut back games and limit traveling. And ultimately what this non-conference format does is it allows for more flexibility for conferences in case, cases get spiked or a team has a lot of cases, stuff like that. There's flexibility within it all. But now, what do I think college football should do? Here's what I think college football should do. I think, and the way it's looking like now, all college football conferences should move to a 10-game all-conference schedule, which the Big Ten's already done, the Pac-12's already done, the SEC is already done. The ACC is close, but basically is already done. So now the Big 12 just needs to do it, and I do believe the Big 12 will do it. And I think that, and I've only listed the Power 5 conferences here, but of course the Group of 5 conferences would do this as well if they wanted to still play college football. But definitely I think the Power 5 conferences will all do it. But then what I think they should go from there is, my opinion is, sports just in the world today cannot work without a bubble. They just can't. They cannot work without a bubble. So I believe that each conference, because they are only playing conference schedules, it's already limiting traveling. I say limit traveling even more and do what pretty much every other professional sport, aside from baseball and football, are doing right now, and move into a bubble. So the Big Ten has a bubble. Maybe that could be in Chicago or Indianapolis. The SEC has a bubble. That could be in Atlanta or somewhere down south. The Pac-12 could have a bubble. Could be somewhere in California, Oregon, Nevada, maybe Las Vegas. The ACC could have a bubble. That might be somewhere in the Carolinas, and the Big 12 could have a bubble, which could be in either Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, somewhere like that. But I think every conference needs to move to a bubble. That just limits traveling even more. And because of the bubble, no one comes in, no one comes out. It's going to be really hard to manage for all college football, but that's what I think they should do if they can do it. Now, if they can't do it, they've already limited traveling, and I think we're just going to have to hope for the best. But I think each conference should move to a bubble. Again, it's going to be really, really hard to do, but that is just what I think they should do. And because this is more than likely what's going to happen, not the bubble, but each team moving down to 10 games, you're going to play no non-conference opponents. So the playoff is going to have to expand at least to 6 or 8 teams. Now, I would prefer to see 8 teams. I am all for getting as many teams into the playoff as possible, as the playoff committee has said, hey, you know, we still plan to have a college football playoff, and we're still going to sit here and do our job at determining the best teams to get into the playoff, and that's fine. But without any non-conference games, you have to expand the playoff at least to 6 or 8 teams, in my opinion. Maybe they can expand it to 5 and have a 4 or 5 play-in game where all the Power 5 conference champions end up going and to the college football playoff, where all the big Power 5 champions go in. Of course, if the Group of 5 don't decide to play, but you got to expand the playoff if this is going to happen. It's just what's going to make college football work. It's what fans are going to want to see, and it's what is pretty much every major sport is doing. The Major League Baseball expanded to 16 teams. National Hockey League expanded to 24 teams. The NBA has brought 22 teams to seed for a bubble. The MLS brought all 26, went down to 24, but all 26 of its teams into a World Cup style tournament. Now the NFL hasn't done anything like that, but college football has just got to expand its playoff. This year has been crazy, and the expanded playoff will make players happy. It'll make coaches happy, and most importantly of all, it'll make us, the fans, happy. So that is just my thoughts on what sports is doing right, what sports is doing wrong, and what college football should do. But now I want to ask you guys a very, very important question. What should I do until conferences in the NCAA decide what they want to do? Everything is pretty much set, but until schedules are released, I really don't have a whole lot to do. I could continue my player rankings, but I would change my opinions on a lot of the lists that I've already made and posted. But what do you think I should do until conferences, or at least until conferences finalize what they want to do, and until schedules are released? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, comment down below if you would just like to see another channel where I cover all sports. And that, of course, this would be all sports in the United States of America. So like National League Hockey, MLS, NBA, MLB, NFL, college sports as well. I think that would be a lot of fun. I wouldn't end up posting every day. I'd maybe post once or twice a week. Just give you a rundown of some scores, some big news that has happened in the sports world. And predictions and stuff like that. But let me know if you guys would like to see me do that. I think that would be a lot of fun. But again, comment down below what you want me to do on this channel until schedules are finalized and released. And comment down below if you want to see another channel where I branch out and I get to cover all the major sports in the United States of America. That is going to do it for this video. I'm so glad to be back making videos for you guys, but please let me know what you want me to do in the meantime down in the comment section down below. And again, please leave a like on this video. Also consider subscribing if you're brand new or you just enjoy my content, and please turn on the notification bell so you guys can join Tailgate Nation so you do not miss an upload. And until next time, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. It's good to be back, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.